Greetings, everybody, and welcome to my YouTube that I'm creating for you today on the theme of the sun's ingress into the zodiacal sign of Libra. This is happening on the 22nd of September at 21 minutes past 9 p.m. in Johannesburg, South Africa. And the sun remains in the constellation of Libra all the way until the 23rd of October, till the morning of 6:51 a.m. a Saturday here in South Africa. So please adjust that for your time zones. So this is a very special time for us here in the South because spring begins and lots of flowers to be picked in the garden. As a matter of fact, just behind us, there are some beautiful strelitzias and some coral tree erythrina flowers and bougainvilleas that I'm blessed to be able to pick in the garden that I stay in. And even the sign that I've created here are from the flowers from my garden, and some leaves and some bird seed that I feed is the bee. The R is created out of some bulbine and some crassula from my garden. Of course, the A out of bougainvilleas. The Libra season begins on the 22nd of September. So what exactly does this mean? Well, it is the time of the year as the sun ingresses into Libra that we are in a phase of what we call the equinox. This is an equilibrium between the length of the night and the length of the day. It's a bit of a pivotal point, or almost like a tug of war, where if we believe in the metaphor as above, so below, we can look at our own inner darkness and light at the solstice and create possibly a little ceremony and celebrate this by possibly just sitting quietly, maybe becoming aware of what it is that we may feel is our inner darkness, and be conscious of the fact that as the days become longer and the sunlight becomes longer, we go from the dreary dryness and sort of lifeless winter months into an environment of where, as the light grows and we can sow crops, life force emerges from this more dormant phase of the winter months. And relating this to our own personal inner journey, this equinox, once we analyze the balance of our own inner darkness and lightness, could symbolize, and I invite you to the symbolism, it could symbolize a time where we perhaps want to release some of our own inner darkness and become more enlightened and conscious and bring in more of the lighter things into our life. In other words, if we look at keywords of, let's say, the darker part of our personality, we may look towards situations that feel like death or descent in our personality, any kind of inner darkness or depression that we may be experiencing because of some decay or because of some deceit, some sort of selfish pleasures perhaps, or betrayal that we've experienced in our lives. The material aspects of our being where we can be coaxed into situations of greed or lust, ego's pleasures of the material world that may tempt us, trials or any tests that we are undergoing, any kind of sense of oppression or domination that we may be experiencing, any kind of hardships or difficulties, anything that feels unfair, right, that causes suffering or struggle, or anything that feels like an opposition within our own lives. We may want to do this, but we feel an opposed calling to do something else. Situations that frustrate us to the point that we become angry or fearful, or possibly where we have too much pride, the sense of evil or our own shadow, sense of violence or aggression or any kind of negative action or inferior action that we may express with this inner sense of belief of darkness around ourselves. Anything that may be like a poison to ourselves, hatred towards ourselves, a sense of devolution or degeneration, as well as the keywords of hell or demons is also a way of looking at the dark within our persona. So negative behaviors such as addictions, of course, also fall into this realm of our own inner darkness. possibly selfishness of holding on to things that we no longer need, a sense of attachment that we feel benefits us. And also this realization that by giving up some of the personal judgments we have for ourselves, or belief systems that we have for ourselves, which kind of keep us stuck in the smaller aspects of life, and realize by sharing or giving to that is actually more fulfilling for our own spirituality and growth, and enlightens us, is letting go of some of these attachments and rather sharing with others. The Katha Upanishad mentions those who see themselves in all and all in them help others through spiritual osmosis to realize the self themselves. So as we sit in this time of equinox, of the dark and the light in the sky being equal, and we realize that the lightness will emerge as the days become longer here in the southern hemisphere, the vernal equinox, we call it, the spring equinox. Of course, this is different in the northern hemisphere. Where people living in the northern, the population of the northern hemispheres are going into the time of autumn and more darkness. The theme of the spring equinox is what I'll be discussing, because I do live in the southern hemisphere. So for us here in the south, it is a time to look towards the light, right? And to see what is it about ourselves that we feel is dark, that we're willing to sacrifice or let go in our egos, so that we can experience more enlightenment, more lightness, a sense of inner birth within ourselves, a sense of ascent, or just the feeling of feeling alive and being alive. Any kind of progress or selflessness that we can see or would desire to have more of within ourselves, that may give us more peace, working from a phase of love for the self, may awaken more happiness, and we may discover inner treasures of understanding ourselves, feeling a lot more wise, having more compassion for self and empathy for ourselves, and even realizing that if we give up earthly pleasures of riches and fame, for instance, or even any sort of addiction we may have, and that we renounce the material world and any such addictions, that will allow us to discover the treasures of our own spirit, which are actually far more everlasting than the material goods that we may be holding on to. So it's a time of greater consciousness, or it can be a time, I invite you to be curious about this, can be a time of greater consciousness where we can cultivate superior awakening within ourselves, a time of self-knowledge, right? You shine light into something, you can start seeing more. And also our will to awaken the spiritual work, or the process, which allows us to remove misunderstandings about ourselves and to resurrect the good actions in our lives and events that we would term the right action, right? To develop our own strength, to purify ourselves, to think of life as nectar, and to live our lives through love and divine inner peace. This is a sense of evolution. This is a sense of regeneration. This is a sense where angels and the heavens support us, versus the darker side, which of course is looked at as a hell realm, or where there's demons that may be tempting us. The light that enters into the universe here in the southern hemisphere at the moment is what may awaken us to become more charitable and do more volunteer work, so that we could experience sort of mystical experiences of spiritual states that are far more fulfilling than being attached to the material world, right? And that can also confer a sense of greater benefit to the world than just ourselves, realizing that we are part of everything, and that giving up some of our own personal things at times may do better for the world, and with that we have more inner peace. So it's really about having the opportunity to find out about our spiritual awakening. And I do like Luke in 22:42 verse speaks of saying, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." And I think that is the whole idea of the symbolism around the equinox is how much of my ego or the darkness or the judgment that I have or the criticism about myself do I want to let go and actually rather work with love and the lightness and trust of every single moment in time. Rumi has a beautiful poem also around darkness and lightness, and he has a couple of them actually. One is, if everything around you seems dark, look again, you may be the light. He also speaks of, he says, in a night full of pain and darkness, be a candle spreading light until dawn. He also has a lovely, beautiful poem that says, once you conquer your selfish self, all your darkness will change to light. And lastly, there's another beautiful one. He says, who has seen a shadow separated from the light? So with the Oracle of Delphi speaking of as above, so below, the equinox can be a time of ritual or celebration where you can take time for yourself to just be conscious and aware of what you feel is dark in your life and what you feel is light and enlightenment within your life, and realize that as the heavens here in the southern hemisphere are providing more light daily, this could be an encouragement to try and live a life of more light and enlightenment within yourself. Leonard Cohen, in his lyrics of the song called Anthem, says, ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything, and that is how the light gets in. So the purpose of an equinox is to look at oneself and realize that without the shadow and the darkness, without that crack where we are not what we may judge to be perfect, that is where the light comes in. And this is where we can work on ourselves at the time of the equinox to possibly sacrifice bad habits for a better way of living. Now, the Buddhists have a beautiful wheel of samsara which they create, and even in that wheel they depict the periods of light which they refer to as evolution of the soul and humanity, and they also depict in that circle the darkness, which is what they refer to as devolution. Of course, in Christianity, it's the resurrection of Jesus, which is, of course, the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, March 21st, around about there is the celebration of Jesus's resurrection. But prior to the Christianity, even the Egyptians used to celebrate their god Osiris resurrecting. And the Maya down in the southern hemisphere of America had the same. They had a maize god called Humupu. I might pronounce that incorrectly. Humapu, I think is how it's pronounced. He too is the symbol of resurrection, and the symbol of resurrection is the light entering the universe from the cosmos, from the sun, reflects within ourselves this resurrection of a self, sacrificing something that we don't like about ourselves to resurrect as a better version of ourselves. And even the Aztec have a god called Quetzalcoatl, and he too was resurrected around the time of the equinox, and as the sunlight was going to bless the southern hemisphere for the 6 months of spring and summer, and then of course the sunlight wanes after the summer solstice in December in the southern hemisphere and reverse in the northern hemisphere. The great Sphinx of Giza in Egypt faces and is aligned to the sunrise at spring equinox, and also the temple of Angkor Wat in Cambodia is aligned to face the rising sun of the spring equinox. So we have, for instance, stone monoliths throughout Africa, Southern Africa, Great Zimbabwean ruins, Adam's calendar in Mpumalanga, where there are monoliths aligned with when the sun reaches this point of equanimity, of day and night light being the same. Alrighty, so here we have a chart of the sun's ingress. We see the sun down here at 0 degrees of, there it is, at 0 degrees of Libra, and I will be tracing it as it moves through the full 30 degrees of Libra. But I would like to start off by saying, let's not forget that Saturn and Uranus is the backdrop of this entire year of 2021, where we have Saturn, structures, organization, squaring off with Uranus, which wants new liberation and innovative forward-thinking planning. That is the bigger background. Also, let's keep in mind that both Uranus is retrograde, so too is Saturn, so is Pluto, so is Jupiter, and so too is even Neptune. Now, they were moving forward at the beginning of the year, and we had from January till April, all was hunky-dory. We're all moving forward into our new way of living. Then end of April, Pluto went retrograde. End of May, Saturn went retrograde. And end of June, both Neptune and Jupiter went retrograde. So we are in a phase at the moment which is related really more to reassessing, reevaluating, reconsidering, and less to do with moving forward. So this may seem like a time of frustration, but really what this is, it's giving us an opportunity to see that the new that we created between Jan and April, have a look at that. Was that successful? If not, how can you improve? And what have you learned from whatever mistakes were made? And throughout this month, we have Pluto going direct on the 6th of October. Saturn goes direct on the 10th of October, and Jupiter goes direct on the 17th of October. So with that, of course, there's a sense of forward motion, which we haven't had over the last couple of months. April, May, June, July looks more like we were going back to old ways and having to improve those. That is always the opportunity with retrograde planets, is to redo something to a better and higher standard. So this month also, Mercury in the sign of Libra will also be retrograding, and Mercury goes retrograde on the 26th of September at 25 degrees. So we'll see it'll only move 1 degree forward between the 22nd of September and 26th. And then for the rest of the time, it's actually moving backwards all the way to about 10 degrees, which will be somewhere around here. It's actually moving backwards. That is the idea of retrogradation, is the planet looking to be going, they don't move backwards in the heavens, but of course, from our perception here, it looks like the planet is going backwards. And this can become a time, so this is now from the 26th of September, Mercury goes station to move backwards, and on the 10th, and when it reaches 10 degrees, which is on the 19th of October at 5 p.m., it starts stationing to go direct. So during this time, we may feel frustrated, and we may realize that we still have to pull our energies in to review, to reflect on things. And it's not a time to be pushing forward or going ahead with redoing things. If anything, it's a great time during the 26th of September phase to the 19th of October to finish off things from the past that you may have wanted to do a while back and just never got a chance to it. And now it's like, go back there and sort this all out. Mercury moves backwards throughout this retrogradation. She does make a square to Pluto. We can see she's already actually at 24 degrees, already in a square on the 22nd of September. And Pluto being everything to do with transformation, endings, rebirth, regeneration, even sense of crisis, and the sense of understanding that something is over and decayed and it is time for new. We will feel that strongly on the 22nd of September. And on Venus's path backwards, it connects with Pluto for a couple of days and also continues all the way until the 30th of September to have that square angle up to Pluto. And we'll feel the after effect of that even up until about the 6th of October. So this is really a great time to say, what is it that I need to get rid of in my life? What can I cut out? And because it's Mercury, it's about how we think. It's about how we communicate. What is it about myself that I can maybe be less critical or less judgmental about myself? There's a sense of an inner kind of dying of a certain way of thinking that no longer serves us. I mean, Mercury then, as it's going retrograde, then also makes a beautiful trine to Jupiter up here at 23 degrees on its passage back. And it is with this trine of Mercury to Jupiter, which is around about the 3rd of October, that we might have a sense of excess desire to talk and communicate. Jupiter is expansive and allows us wisdom. So there's a sense of lightness after the more heavier days of Mercury squaring of Pluto. We then get into a sense of solutions, resolutions, more opportunities. It's a lighter energy, which we'll feel from the 3rd of October onwards. Mercury then moves right into the Cazimi heart of the sun on the 9th of October, because of course the sun is moving forward, and they will meet at the same position also at a time that Mars is close by to the sun. So the strong theme here is that we have the sun in Libra, we have Mars in Libra, and we have Mercury in Libra, and they are either squaring off Pluto or trining Saturn and Jupiter as the month proceeds. Now, Libra, of course, is the sign of romanticism, of sociability. It likes to be, Librans like to be gentle. They may be argumentative because they do see both sides of any situation, and fairness is one of the most important things of the Libra scale. Also wanting peace and wanting love and uniting people and balancing situations. By the way, happy birthday to all the Librans. Wishing you all the best on your birthday throughout this month. The sun is the symbol of nobility, of warmth, of being authoritative, about radiating. The sun is how we radiate out into the world. And for Librans, this is a little bit more difficult, and that's why Libra, the sun in Libra is in fall, is because Librans want to have relationships with others, and they tend to consider the others and what they believe the other person may want from them, so that they can have the other person remain within a relationship to them. Losing relationships or not being in a relationship or not uniting with others is one of Libra's biggest nemesis. They could not imagine life without other people. And in so doing, they may compromise who they are so that they believe the other person may like them more and stay within a relationship. So Libra has the ability or the desire to want to build up rapport with others and be charismatic and want to be liked. And of course, because it's ruled by Venus, it is very much to do about beauty and harmony. And if you are a Libra who has Venus in Libra or Venus in Taurus, where they're in rulership, then of course life is a little bit sweeter, because Venus, when it's in rulership, is more sensual and more attractive and pleasurable, and rules, of course, anything to do with art and beauty and harmony. But currently, what we have is the planet Venus, which I'd like to just point out for you over here, in the sign of Scorpio, where it too is debilitated. So before we look at the entire meaning of the Venus being debilitated, I do want to just have a look at the sun first. The sun throughout its journey will, on the 30th of September, trine Saturn. This is a fantastic time to be manifesting and creating things for the long haul. It will conjunct Mars from the 6th to the 9th of October. as they both move forward in the sky. From here we can see 5 degrees of Mars and 0 degrees of Sun. They then meet up at 14 and 15 degrees over this time period of the 6th to the 9th of October. And Mars, when it is in Libra, is also in its detriment. Normally Mars, the planet of warriorship, of being fearless and pioneering and passionate, powerful, dynamic, assertive, ambitious, the warrior archetype, when in Libra, tends to struggle, because Libra actually is the sign that wants to make peace. So how does a warrior, the archetype of the warrior who wants to fight and attack, how does Mars do this when it's in the opposite sign of Libra? The opposite sign meaning when it's in Aries, which is 180 degrees away from Libra. That is when it can be dynamic and powerful and assertive and ambitious and the warrior archetype. But when in Libra, it really struggles. It's not very happy there, and it's detrimented. So it can have bursts of aggression or have quite a ruthless, bombastic, or even destructive nature when Mars is in Libra, because it can't seem to aim and target what really the problem is, and then accidentally targets the friends around it, because Libra always wants to have lots of friends and peace and harmony. So it could be a time that between the 6th and the 9th of October, that there's more sort of passive aggressive words uttered by wherever Libra is in your chart. And I will look to all 12 signs once I've completed the introduction, but I do want you to just get a background feel of what the sun is doing before I go into the 12 signs. And there will be timestamps for these 12 signs in the description below. So if you have any planets on 14 or 15 of Libra, be aware that during this time, with Mars, Cazimi, and conjunct the sun, that there will be a lot more energy within your own physical body. This will activate the Martian warrior energy. And of course, Mars, when it's in the sign of Libra, is in its detriment, because Libra wants peace and harmony and wants to unite everyone. But Mars is actually the warrior that wants to attack and be dynamic and assertive and ambitious and powerful. And yet it feels uncomfortable to act in Libra, because Libra is the sign of consideration of others. So it could be that during this time, there's a sense of kind of passive aggressive words that may be uttered, passive aggressive actions, because Libra is an air sign, and this is about how we communicate with others. Now, the sun then continues. And also, I'd like to mention that with Mars being in its detriment, it may act out aggressively or destructively, or be rather ruthless or bombastic. And just to be cautious of that, and to try and focus throughout those days on making sure that your actions are related to being powerful, dynamic, assertive, or ambitious, as opposed to aggressive or destructive or bombastic, of course. So as the sun then continues on her journey, he makes a trine to Jupiter at 23 degrees. This is on the 15th of October, which lightens the load. This is when the sun feels like it can expand, it can explore wisdom. Jupiter being the benefic, the 15th of October, then things ease and lighten up after that Mars conjunction with the sun around the 6th to the 9th of October. And we end off around the 17th of October with the sun squaring off Pluto. And here, this is where how we radiate and how we shine out into the world, how we can be noble and warm, may be completely transformed. There could be a consciousness that around that time of the 17th of October, we realize that we can actually do so much better, and we can transform and let go of the old and no longer stick to old ways of possibly being too egotistical or overbearing or even authoritarian, and rather become more authoritative or radiant or warm or noble in our actions. So the other planet that I want to look at throughout this time of movement of the sun, as it moves through this area in the heavens, is I'd like to look at Venus, because Venus, of course, is the ruler of Libra. And Venus is the planet that rules sensuality, attractiveness, pleasurabilities, art, young woman, beauty, jewelry. And it is during this time that Venus, when she's in Scorpio, which is the opposite sign of Taurus, which is where she is in rulership and can enact all of these keywords with ease. In the sign of Scorpio, she may act out indulgently or excessively, or be too materialistic, even have venal tendencies such as bribery and corruption. So we'll have a look at that for all of you to see where this happens in your chart. And we can see that on the 22nd of September, it starts off with a 180-degree opposition by the 23rd of September with the planet Uranus. Uranus loving excitement and the new, and the idea of being independent and liberated and freedom loving, would then create around the 23rd of September a situation whereby the things that you feel you're attached to through love or through beauty may need changes. So unexpected changes could happen around the 23rd of September. As Venus then moves on to 21 degrees, then she meets up with Neptune in the heaven as a trine, which is a harmonious transit of light between the two of them seeing each other. And it can bring a lot of magical imagination and intuition and a sense of dreaminess and having visions of what your future is. This is around the 29th of September. By the 30th of September, Venus moves off to square off Jupiter, and this could become a time of overindulgence, the square being a challenge between the two benefics. This could be too much of a good thing, is not always the best thing. Later on, around the 2nd of October, Venus moves off to a sextile with Pluto at 24 degrees, and this is really sort of a changing of gears and massive transformation around all that matters, all the things in your life that you love. And one looks to the area in your chart where you have Scorpio and Sagittarius, because Venus moves into Sagittarius around the 7th of October, but prior to that, she's moving through Scorpio, and this will activate this area in your life, which we'll look to when I do the 12 signs at the end of this video. Venus becomes more adventurous and more seeking once she enters Sagittarius on the 7th of October. She meets up with the South Node on the 10th of October. This could be a time of loss or letting go. Again, a sense of self-renouncing the material world for seeking of more of a spiritual connection and inner peace. We have the chart for the new moon, which is on the 6th of October. And of course, this is the day where Pluto stations. That's why it's got the little S next to go direct. And even though it's in a very wide square to the sun, this will allow us to have the sense of forward movement. But of course, a new moon is not the time to be acting and being active and going out into the world. Quite the contrary, the new moon is a time to withdraw from the world and action and spend some time connecting to spirit or self, contemplating, becoming aware of what it is in our lives that we kind of could flush out with that last cycle of the moon before it joined up with the sun here at 13 degrees in Libra, and spend the time brewing, praying, meditating, so that we can connect with our own inner divine and find out what imagination or intuition, what messages are coming to us from the angels, what messages are coming to us from our higher self or from God, whatever your belief system is, where you feel that you become inspired and have intention. So it's around the new moon of the 6th of October, about 2 days before, from the 4th of October till about the 8th of October, that it's a time to kind of reflect and integrate and percolate what's been happening the whole month before, from the 6th of September to the 6th of October, and realize what it is that we can let go for ourselves with that square to Pluto, and then create new in our lives. So what I'd also like to do is like to look at the full moon which is happening on the 20th of October. And here we can see that the sun is opposite the moon in Aries, and the Aries is the sign of being courageous and pioneering forward and looking after oneself, and about the sense of I am. So we come from a place of the new moon, which was all about reflecting about our inner relationship with ourselves and with others, to the new moon on the 20th, the full moon on the 20th of October in the sign of Aries, where we have the courage to step out and create these relationships that we were thinking about during the new moon, and that we would have been building up from the waxing phase of the new moon, say from the 8th of October, all the way through to the 20th of October, the relationships that we built that are assisting us in transforming and letting go that which no longer serves us, letting go of the darkness, burning down like what the phoenix does to ashes, to then regenerate. So this full moon is really a time of regeneration and realizing what it is that we can just cut out with that T-square up to Pluto up there at 24 degrees. It's really a time of letting go of the old ways. And so Jupiter in the mix there of a trine from the sun and a sextile to the moon, there's a sense of expansion and hopefulness, wisdom and enlightenment that is part of the energy of this full moon. What I'd like to do now is go ahead and describe how the Libra Ingress will be affecting all 12 signs. And when you look to your own chart, remember that if you are looking at the ascendant sign of the zodiac that I'm discussing, this is the most predominant way, because this is how you interact with the world, and you'll feel that quite strongly. You can look also at your sun sign. This is more the outward way of how you radiate and shine out into the world, your yang part of your nature. And you may look to your moon sign as well, which is more of the receptive yin, reflective nature of the internalized expression of what I am about to discuss. So the art that I'm using is from Geoffrey Boschart as I go through all of the signs. So I'm going to start with the sign of Libra, seeing that the sun is ingressing into Libra, and this is the subject of today's video. And I would like to say that for all the Libra rising sun or moons, this is really a time for you to shine in terms of what your persona looks like, your physical health, and checking up on that. And of course, to remember to remain noble and radiant and an authority of your physical body and your persona and how you shine out into the world, versus getting carried away with becoming egotistical or overbearing or authoritarian during this time. Venus, the ruler of the sun, is in an area in your chart that relates to your finances. So this is a time to not become indulgent or excessive around your finances, your self-esteem, your self-worth, and rather focus on what gives you pleasure and what is essential for you in terms of sensuality. The new moon on the 6th of October is very much related to your physical body, your health, and how you shine in the world. This is a fabulous time to just rest, reflect, meditate, pull back, and listen to the divine for intuition and imagination to guide you forward in terms of how you can be a new radiant version of yourself that is more authoritative as opposed to authoritarian. And also in terms of your health, how can you shine and radiate with your health in terms of not being indulgent or excessive. And it's around the 20th of October at the full moon that you will realize the relationships and the partners in your life that will highlight this growth from discovering what it is that you need in terms of your own health and your persona, and then creating it as the moon waxes up until the 20th of October by incorporating others in your life, and the relationships in your life will assist you with this. For all the Scorpios, this is happening for you in a place of the sun transiting and shining its radiance and ability and authority into your life, is happening in a place in your life where you're dealing with your own inner shadows. This is where you may feel a sense of loss, or where you're self-renouncing the world so that you can become closer to spirit. And it's important to to look at this area of your life and realize that you may have given up something of yourself that may have been indulgent or excessive. And through that, you can attain more of a sense of connection to spirit or to God, and possibly also connect more with your own intuition and what it is that you need. So this can be done through walks alone, through yoga, through prayer, through music, just to connect a little bit more to yourself. Especially on the new moon, you may feel like you really want to isolate and retreat from the world so that you can make time to understand the intentions of that new moon in your life. And of course, it all revolves around the Libra themes of relationships and love. And it's on the 20th of October during the full moon that you will realize what it is about your day-to-day routine and how you can be of service to other people in your life that will allow you to have that inner integrity with your spirituality. This may also very much relate to your routine around concerns around your health, or even pets if you have any, or just generally about your work that you do every day that will allow you to have the relationships that you seek in your life, that allow you to have a better relationship with yourself. For all of the Sagittarians, this sun transiting through your area in your life relates very much to what your hopes and dreams are, as well as what income it is that you earn. And here you may ask yourself, how can I be more noble and radiate my authority out into the world, and stay away from being egotistical, overbearing, or authoritarian when it comes to having friends and groups of people in society that I relate to, and when it comes to the things that you want for yourself in terms of your hopes and dreams. Will be influenced about looking at your own shadow side in terms of where are you indulgent or excessive, and where can you swap this for being more loving and pleasurable and creating sensuality also for yourself. The new moon is happening in an area of your life where you be reassessing what your hopes and dreams are, what groups of society do you want to connect with, and how can you help community at large through the hopes and dreams that you want. And as the moon waxes from this point in your chart to the 20th of October, when there's the full moon, it will relate very much to either matters related to children or how you express yourself out into the world, how you are creative, what you do that is fun for you, what do you like to do in terms of going on holidays and just having a little bit more fun in your life. For the Capricorns, this is going to be occurring for you, the ingress of the sun shining nobility and radiance and authority into your life in the place of your career and vocation, and where you feel that you can be the highest version of your own success. In other words, you do not want to be authoritarian or overbearing or egotistical, rather want to bring out the sense of nobility and pleasurability that Libra can invoke in this area of your life. And it's matters related to indulgent or excessive friends or hopes and dreams that you may have, that you may realize that having a healthy sense of pleasure or sensuality is more important than the indulgent, excessive friends or groups or hopes and dreams that you've been associating with in your life. The new moon will truly highlight a time for you to percolate and receive imagination and intuition that will guide you in terms of how your career or your actions out into the world will be moving forward in terms of your profession. And it is around, that is on the 6th of October. And then on the 20th of October at the full moon, it will highlight matters relating to your home and family life and the place of living and your roots and your ancestry, which will give you these answers to the new imaginations and intuitions and intentions that arose on the 6th of October during the new moon. Then for all the Aquarians, this is happening with the sun radiating its Libra energy through to you in an area of your life that relates to belief systems and spirituality and philosophy and travels overseas and possibly higher learning, and also either counseling with gurus or being a guru and counseling others. And it is here that you want to be more noble and radiant and an authority of such matters versus being egotistical, overbearing, or authoritarian in such matters. The indulgence or excessive ways of the work environment, or how you perceive to think that you're the best version of yourself, maybe let go for more pleasurable and sensual ways of being. And it's during the new moon that you really have time to reflect, take a break, and listen to the guidance of gurus and wise people related to matters from overseas and the foreign, or foreigners, integrating of philosophies and spirituality that will rise to grow all the way through to the 20th of October as the moon grows and arrives in Aries. This is in an area of your chart that relates to how you communicate and how you think of these new ways of being more noble and radiant in terms of your communications, and to be sensual and pleasurable in your discussions with others. Of course, also around the 9th of October, you may feel a specifically good day for such communications. Then for Pisces, ingressing in your chart is in an area related to where you may feel matters such as taboo, grief, loss, anxiety, fear around resources that you may receive from others in terms of, income from partners, or the resource that you may feel that you're worth to others. Here you want to be radiant and noble and authoritative in how it is that you can be a resource to others, and matters related to foreigners or belief systems, philosophies, religions, higher studies that may have seemed indulgent and excessive need to be focused upon as something that could be more pleasurable and more sensual in its nature. And it's during the new moon of the 6th of October that you will really feel the sense of possibly an intimacy with your own anxieties and fears around, am I worthy of another person to pay me in terms of their time, their physical, their financial, their spiritual resources? And if so, what financial, spiritual, and emotional resources do I have to give to them? And this is a good time for you during the 6th of October time to just reflect and listen to the imagination and the energies around you to assist you in how it is that you could create this sense of self-esteem and money for yourself. And by the 20th of October, you will have the solutions that will come to a head whereby you'll realize, wow, this is what my self-esteem is around. This is what I'm worth, and this is what I can gain from being a resource to others. And this is how I want to manage my self-esteem, my confidence, and also the possessions and the material finances that I own. And for Aries, the Libra Ingress is occurring in an area related to relationships. So for you, this is about which of my relationships are overbearing, egotistical, and authoritarian, or how am I egotistical, overbearing, and authoritarian within my relationships, and how can I attract more noble, radiant, authoritative persons by being such myself? How can I be more of a noble, radiant, authoritative person? And this is very much a time to look at where it is that you may feel that you've been indulgent or excessive in terms of what it is that you can offer to others or receive from others within relationships. And this is a focus on sensuality and pleasure instead of indulgent excess. And it's during the new moon that you will really have an opportunity to look at yourself within relationships and look at the situation where you want to just be more noble and radiant and an authority in your relationship versus the challenges of being too egotistical, overbearing, or authoritarian. And it's a time on the new moon of the 6th of October to really be quiet and reflect and meditate on such matters, because you will hear the answers. And ultimately, from there up until the 20th of October, as the moon waxes with this new inspiration from the new moon, you will discover things about yourself that you feel will give you that power to improve the relationship with others, because ultimately the relationship we have with ourselves is really all that we are able to have with others. So as long as we're being egotistical, overbearing, or authoritarian with ourselves, we can't expect more noble, radiant, authoritative persons to enter our life. So you will notice by the 20th of October that really the change comes from within, letting go that darkness, allowing the lightness to come in and radiating and shining out as this more noble authority within your own life. When we look at the Taurians, this area in your life with the Libra Ingress highlights your day-to-day routine, possibly any diseases or self-undoing that you've done from overwork. And it's about how you can be of service to others. And you want to do this in a noble, radiant, authoritative way. And it's matters related to relationships that you've been in that have possibly been too indulgent or excessive, where you feel like you would like to have more pleasure and sensuality that need to be released. And it's during the new moon that you will feel like you would want to withdraw and just have a relook at your health routines for the day, your day-to-day routine in terms of how you are of service to other persons. And it is by the 20th of October that you realize that you actually need a lot more time to yourself to connect to spirit and God and the universe, to self-renounce the material world, to be more inspirational, to allow you the space to be more inspirational, creative, and connected with your own inner self. And that in itself will help you be more sensual and pleasurable, as well as noble and radiant and an authority in your day-to-day routines. For all the Gemini, the Sun's ingress is occurring in an area in your life that relates to how you have fun and how you express yourself. This is about how you are a lover. This is how you are creative. This is you as a child, your inner child coming to the fore. And here also, you don't want to be the type of inner child that is overbearing, egotistical, authoritarian. You would like to be a playful child that has nobility and radiance and authority about how it expresses itself. And this could even be a creative expression. This could be a birth of a child. This is a new project which is creative and seeks to be noble and radiant and an authority in how it expresses itself. Now, matters related to being indulgent and excessive in terms of your day-to-day routine and how you are of service to others needs to be flushed out, and there needs to be more of a sense of sensuality and in pleasure in how you are of service to other people and how you manage your own health and your day-to-day routine. It is during the new moon for the Geminis that you will really have time to look within to see, how is it that I can be the best, most creative version of myself? How is it that I can express myself and be more loving and be a lover and giver of myself? And this could also relate to any children that you have. It's a time to reflect on what is pleasure and what is fun for me in my life. And as the moon waxes from that 6th of October new moon to the 20th of October, you will get to a point where you'll realize that stepping out into society with friends and groups of people and receiving love from them in a way that relates to what hopes and dreams mean for you is really the answer to becoming more essential and pleasurable and noble and radiant and an authority in terms of how it is that you express yourself out into the world. When we look to the Cancerians, the Libra Ingress is happening in an area of your life that very much relates to home and family life. What does family life mean to you? Where are you egotistical, overbearing, or authoritarian in terms of your home life? And how can you change that to be more of a noble, radiant, authoritative place of living? The genetics, the origin, the ancestry of your home and family life. And it's matters related to having been too indulgent and excessive regarding the love that you give, where you want to be playful or express yourself, or the children that you have in your life. There's a sense of the indulgence and excessive there needs to be swapped out for a more sensual, pleasurable way of being. And it's during the time of the new moon on the 6th of October that you'll really feel like you just want to be at home. You want to look around your home and your family life and have a look, see how can you create a more noble, radiant, authoritative way of home life versus the egotistical, overbearing, authoritarian one. And with that, also having released indulgences or excesses around home life, bring in more of the sensuality and pleasures. And it's at the time of the new moon that you'll get the inspirations and the insights and the intentions coming to you. And by the time the 20th of October arrives, the moon will have grown and grown and grown. And on the 20th of October, you will realize how having reset the foundations of home and family life will allow you to step out into the world and be a greater success in terms of your profession and your vocation, and for your own personal sense of self. You will feel like, I can be noble and radiant and authoritative in my career, thanks to having sorted things out around the home life. And for the Leos, the Libra Ingress is in an area related to your immediate environment, your siblings, your neighborhood, and the way that you think. And there, have a look. Be curious about, am I ever overbearing or egotistical, authoritarian in how I speak to myself or my neighbors or my siblings or in my commercial environment? What about the home life has been indulgent and excessive that I could release and rather replace with something more sensual and pleasurable? And it's on the new moon of the 6th of October that you will find this is a time to really relook at your own thought processes and what inspires you and what intentions you may feel. And it is then by the 20th of October that you'll have more clarity around your belief systems and matters related to foreign and overseas and foreigners, possibly law, possibly the things that you want to study or teach or learn will come to a head. And there'll be a lot more clarity around that on the 20th of October as it climaxes on the full moon. And then last but not least, Virgo, for all the Virgons, the Libra ingress into the sun will affect you in terms of your self-esteem and finances and how you manage your own confidence and the value systems that you have, which may at times seem rather egotistical, overbearing, or authoritarian. And the sun going through this area in your life is about understanding, how can I be more noble and radiant and have more authority around my self-esteem, my self-value system, my own finances. And you may look to things that were indulgent or excessive in your immediate environment regarding siblings, co-workers, possibly the area of living, and realize, wow, let me drop the indulgence and the excessiveness of my neighborhood or the immediate environment that I'm in, or the co-workers that I work with, or matters related to siblings, and rather bring in more sensuality and pleasure to assist with that. And it's during the new moon on the 6th of October that you will really have time to reflect on your finances and your possessions and the things that you own, and re-budget and kind of get imagination and intuition and intentions brought to you by the angels, by the universe, by you being quiet and just reflecting on such matters that will allow you to experience more sensuality and pleasure and drop any indulgences and excesses. And it's around the 20th of October that you will realize the rewards from doing this and how you are of a resource to others, what it is that you give to others that actually have them invest in you, and with that pay you for your time and your knowledge and your expertise. And you want to do this in the most noble, radiant, authoritative way, and skip being egotistical, overbearing, or authoritarian, or any indulgences, because you will feel the rewards by the 20th of October as you then can shine out into the world in a more sensual, pleasurable way through your nobility and your mastery regarding how you can be of a resource to others. So hereby, I'd like to end the video and say thank you all for joining me today, and I wish you a very blessed and prosperous Libra season ahead up until the 23rd of October, starting on the 22nd of September. Much love and light. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Bye.